Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I reach for her hand as we walk to the crowded room, the familiar warmth of her fingers brushing against mine. For a moment, I thought we might reconnect, that the spark that had been fading over months, maybe even years, could flare up again. But she pulled back sharply, her eyes darting around like she feared someone was watching. "Don't let them think we're a couple," she whispered, almost too casually. But her tone carried an edge I couldn't ignore. I froze, the weight of her words sinking in. We had shared so much together. Laughter, late-night talks, the kind of intimacy that only comes from years of shared history. And yet here she was, rejecting even the smallest gesture of connection in front of others. I wanted to speak, to ask why, but the words stuck in my throat, replaced by a deep, creeping hurt. The party went on around us, a blur of laughter and clinking glasses, but I felt like I was moving through molasses, everything slowed by the shock of rejection. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, sharp enough to draw a few glances. She looked at me, eyes wide for just a moment, maybe realizing she had overstepped, or maybe she didn't care at all. "Fine," I said softly, my voice betraying the storm building inside me. I turned, walking toward the balcony that overlooked the city lights, needing air, needing space, needing to remind myself who I was outside of her world. The cold night breeze hit me, but it was nothing compared to the chill of her words, the feeling of being invisible to the person I loved most. I replayed that moment over and over in my mind. How could she do this? How could she act like our history didn't exist? Like the countless nights we stayed up talking, holding each other through stress and sorrow, never mattered. My mind raced through memories, our first trip together, the silly arguments about food, the nights we fell asleep holding hands. And now, all of it seemed to vanish under the weight of a single sentence. As I leaned against the railing, I watched her across the room. She was laughing at something, her head thrown back, carefree, while I felt the sting of being pushed away. And then the anger came. Not loud, not explosive, but a quiet, simmering rage. How dare she treat me like I didn't exist? How dare she erase what we were in front of everyone? I went back inside, moving through the crowd with measured steps. I caught snippets of conversations. Friends asking if everything was okay, acquaintances giving polite smiles. But I didn't answer. I didn't want to speak. I wanted to feel the anger, the betrayal, to let it remind me that I wasn't powerless. I remembered all the little signs I had ignored over the past months. Her distant glances, the subtle roll of her eyes when I spoke, the way she always seemed distracted when we were together. And now it was undeniable. She didn't see me the way I saw her. She didn't see us the way I thought we existed. I reached for her again, but this time not for intimacy. This time to confront the truth. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked at me, confusion flickering across her face. "Not now," she replied, almost dismissively. Turning back to the group, that was it. That was the moment I realized that whatever connection we had left had been suffocated, strangled by her desire to appear detached, to maintain some image she cared about more than us. I felt my chest tighten, a mixture of sadness and fury swirling inside me. I wanted to yell, to demand she see me, to remind her of every memory we had built, every promise we had made. But I didn't. I walked away instead, retreating into the shadowed corner of the room where no one could see my face, where I could gather my thoughts, where I could breathe without the weight of her judgment pressing down on me. The night dragged on, a blur of faces and voices, but my mind was focused entirely on her. I kept replaying her words, her movement, the way she laughed without me, as if I was already gone from her life. And then I realized something that shook me to my core. I had been holding on to someone who had already let go. I left the party early, stepping out into the night air. The city felt indifferent to my pain. The streets empty, silent witnesses to betrayal I carried in my chest. I walked without direction, letting the cold wind bite at my skin, letting the ache in my heart remind me of what I had lost, what I had ignored for far too long. By the time I returned home, the anger had settled into a calm determination. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't allow her dismissal, her casual cruelty, to define who I was. And I knew that the next steps I would take wouldn't just be about reclaiming my dignity. They would be about showing her, and maybe myself, that I was more than the rejection she had thrown at me. The next morning, I woke with a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. The memory of her pulling away, of her laughing in front of everyone as if I didn't exist, was still fresh, burning under my skin. I went through the motions of my routine, but nothing felt normal. The coffee tasted bland. The sunlight streaming through the window felt harsh, and every reflection in the mirror reminded me of a man who had been dismissed by the person he trusted most. I tried to call her, my hand hovering over the phone, but the thought of her voice, the casual, almost indifferent tone she used the night before, made my fingers freeze. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Not until I figured out what I wanted. Not until I understood the anger and hurt that had taken root inside me. Hours passed. I wandered through the apartment, touching the small things that reminded me of her, the blanket she liked to use, the mug she drank from every morning, the little notes she left on the fridge. Each object carried a memory, and each memory felt like a knife twisting slowly. And then I realized I had been clinging to her image, the one in my mind, instead of facing who she had become. I thought about the life we had built together. I thought about the late-night talks, the laughter, the tears, the dreams we shared. And then I thought about the moment she had rejected me publicly, pulling her hand away, forcing me to stand there humiliated. That moment had stripped away everything I believed in, and yet it had also opened my eyes. By evening, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for her attention. I wasn't going to justify my feelings or remind her the past. I was going to take control of my life, my dignity, and my future. If she didn't see me, if she didn't value what we had, then I owed it to myself to step away, to reclaim the power that had been quietly eroded over time. When she came home that night, I was waiting calm, composed, but with fire in my eyes she hadn't seen in months. She smiled, perhaps thinking everything was normal, that I would fall back into the routine we had so carefully maintained. But I didn't smile back. I didn't reach for her. Instead, I stood tall, looked her straight in the eye, and spoke. "We need to stop pretending," I said, my voice steady but sharp. "Pretending that we're fine, pretending that everything is the same. Because it's not. And I can't keep living like this, waiting for you to see me, to acknowledge me, when you've already chosen not to." She looked at me, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trying to sound casual, but I saw the tension beneath it. "I'm talking about us," I replied. "I'm talking about respect, about being seen and valued. I reached for your hand last night because I wanted connection, because I wanted us, but you pulled away. You rejected me in front of everyone, and I can't ignore that." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She opened her mouth again, then closed it, finally sinking onto the couch as if the weight of my words had landed on her. "I loved you," I continued, "more than I should have, maybe. But love isn't enough when the other person doesn't care, when the person you trusted most treats you like you're invisible. I'm done waiting for you to decide whether I matter. I know now that I do." She tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "No, let me finish. I'm walking away, not because I hate you, but because I respect myself. Because I realize that I deserve to be seen, to be appreciated, to be treated like the person I am, not like an accessory you can display or hide depending on your mood." The silence stretched between us. It was heavy, suffocating, but liberating at the same time. I could feel the tension in my chest easing, the anger transforming into a fierce clarity. I knew that leaving wouldn't be easy. There would be complications, conversations, maybe even regrets, but it was the only path that honored my dignity. I gathered my things, my movements deliberate, each action a declaration of independence. She didn't reach for me. She didn't stop me. She just watched, perhaps finally realizing that the person she had taken for granted was no longer willing to wait for her recognition. As I opened the door and stepped into the cool night, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Fear of the unknown, of life without her, and exhilaration at reclaiming my power, my voice, my self-worth. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt fully awake, fully alive, fully myself. And as the door closed behind me, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Not for her, not for me. I had stood up, not just in a chair in that crowded room, but from the entire life that had held me captive. I had reached the end of the line, and in doing so, I had found the beginning of something entirely new. Freedom, clarity, and a sense of self that no one could ever take away.